All right, everybody. Welcome to the August edition of the Texas Teams Community Meeting. This is our 30th meeting. So we have been going strong for 2.5 years. We've had a couple of meetings where we didn't have a meeting, but or a couple of months where we didn't have a meeting, but 30 months. It's fantastic. And so still going strong. We've got about 50 plus people in the room here in the virtual room. And we are going to start having these in person again, I think. Now it'll be hybrid. We'll always have a Teams option, but for people that want to join in person, we can start hosting these at the Microsoft Office. And so I had the absolute pleasure of meeting Mark Leavenworth in person. He is a real human that is not a robot, at the Task Conference last week. And I like literally so many of you, I have never met you in person, and it would be super cool. Shake your hand. I'm a hugger, so I might actually give some of you a hug. Looking at you, Mr. Leavenworth. And so, although I already gave him a hug. So, there is, there would be the option for, we could do a big room, like we could have up to 75 people in the room. So we'll kind of start, we'll do the registration, and I'll have to figure out how many people are planning to come in person so I can reserve space, but I'll just get more space than we need. So I think with September, we will plan on that being our first month in person. As always, I want to thank the DIR for being our ongoing partner with the Texas Teams community. So Mark, hats off. Thank you again.
Thank you for having me and for putting on these meetings.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm super psyched about today. We have some really colorful and fun people on the call today that are going to share some things with you. And so this is the welcome and introduction section. And if I didn't already say it, my name is Michael Kennedy. I get to work for Microsoft, and I've been working with the state of Texas now going on almost 3 years with hybrid work and remote work. We thought it was just going to be teams, everybody working at the office when I started back in December, but turned into this big remote work thing due to the pandemic. And so I'm actually taken on an additional role at Microsoft. So I'm also working with our customers, both public sector as well as surprisingly a lot of commercial sector customers around metaverse strategy. And so what is the future of work, and what should our customers be thinking about with regard to the metaverse and augmented virtual reality, blockchain, all of those kinds of things. So lots of fun to be had there as well. And so today we are going to be focusing on one of the critical elements of making hybrid work over the long term, and that is communication. That is, how do we communicate effectively to our employees, whether they're coming into the office or whether they're remote. We used to have posters and things at the elevator and at the entrances where people walked in, and that just doesn't serve our whole community. And so how do we break through the noise of too much email, and how do we reach people where they are, and how do we leverage effective communication to achieve organizational goals? So organizational goals can be diversity and inclusion. They can be getting people to use the technology better so that we're more effective hybrid workers. They can be signing up for benefits. So there's all of these things that effective communication can do. And this is not a new topic. We've talked about Company Communicator before. That's the underlying add-in to Teams that we're going to talk about, but we're going to talk about the successes that we've had. And so we have from Texas Health and Human Services, we have the core team that worked on this. There's a lot of other people that helped as well. Michaela Muscher. And Michaela, did I say your last name right?
It's fine. Yeah.
The answer, no, that was not right. And then we have Aaron Passance. And then we also have a special guest, longtime friend, Jonathan Danowitz. Jonathan, I call him the Godfather in my email out to y'all, reminding you about the meeting of modern communications. Jonathan was the global lead at Ernst & Young to roll out modern work best practices to 300,000 people worldwide. And Company Communicator was one of the 3 legs of his stool that they used to very successfully roll out a more productive workforce globally at Ernst & Young. And so I've got a couple of things I want to cover off on, and then we're going to dive straight into that topic. The first thing is the community interest list. If you have friends in your organization, people that you know, people from other organizations, whatever the case might be, that you want to attend this meeting, if you forward the meeting request to them, that will work for a little while. But every once in a while, the list gets really pretty. People leave organizations, and my invite monthly recurring meeting request gets stale. And so every once in a while, I go to the original spreadsheet and I just kind of start anew. So please have them sign up on the Texas Teams Community Interest List. Here's the URL. There's a QR code you can scan with your phone. You can take a picture of this, send it to your friends. And being on the interest list is kind of the official way for me to know that they're interested. If you want to be removed, if you don't want to get invites anymore, then you could go in there in that same form and you can ask to be removed from the list. And I do my best to do that. But there's 500 plus people on this meeting request. It's pretty hard to find a name in 500 names to pull somebody out. So please use the interest list. Let's see. The next thing I want to talk about is some events that are coming up. Last year on August 8th, we had the first Hybrid Work Summit. And it was really successful. We had about 150 people attend. It was a hybrid event. And we had Accenture and Adobe come on and really present about what they were seeing with regard to hybrid work and best practices. We're going to do that again this year, but we've kind of taken it to the next level in 2 ways. The first is that the audience for this is really your executive leadership team. This is not going to be a technology conference where we may not even mention names of product. We're going to be talking about hybrid work best practices. So again, this is for your executive directors. We have a former executive director, Brian Francis, who's going to be presenting. He was the ED for TDLR, Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. We have a Dr. Caesar Wright from University of St. Thomas, who is an organizational specialist and culture specialist. We have metaverse leads from Accenture that are going to come and talk about the future of work. So we will be sending out an invitation in just the next few days. And so we're going to have professionals come and record the event. It's only going to be about 25 to 50 people on site the day of the recording. So if you're interested in seeing this information, there will be an on-demand. We're going to do a national viewing of this and a replay of this. Just know that it will just be for your executives to attend in person. But I wanted to make y'all aware of that because you may have someone that you want to make aware of this thing that's coming up. We're also going to have it on the DIR calendar. And so they'll be able to have a registration, link to the registration there as well. These are a couple of things. Let me pause real quick there. Any questions about the Hybrid Work Summit? All right. This is something that I talked about before. We did so webinars is a type of Teams meeting where you can have a registration page, and just like any Teams meeting, I mean, it is just a regular Teams meeting. It's not a live event. You do have all the granular controls you have in a Teams meeting where you can turn on people's microphones and keep from going off camera. You can even turn off the chat so that it can be a really more like a broadcast style if you want to use it for a town hall or something like that. You can have up to 1,000 people attend the meeting in a collaborative fashion. And you can actually, if you have it turned on in your tenant, you can overflow to up to, I think it's either 10,000 or 20,000 attendees in kind of a listen only mode. But that's called webinars. And you just literally go into your calendar, and when you, your Teams calendar, and you do the drop down in the upper right, new meeting, and you can either say Teams meeting, webinar, or live event if all those are enabled in your environment. But it's very powerful. And we did a recording, a video overview of webinars and this is the link to go, and it's just a available video that you can watch. But really great content. They work really well. The registration page is super simple. So instead of paying someone to have some event registration site and everything else, you can do it yourselves now. Then I also wanted to bring back up, I think most of you know that I have a son that is 15 and a half that has some pretty significant disabilities, and he uses a wheelchair 99% of the time. And so I really try to promote creating a diverse and inclusive environment. And Microsoft has a lot of technologies that help for people that have accessibility challenges. And we have the Ability Summit every year. And there's just absolutely fantastic content. One of these days, we're actually going to have a whole session just on the accessibility capabilities. Maybe we'll even do that next month, that are available in the software you already own, and some things that can be done. And then also maybe talk to you some about some of the cool things going on in the Inclusive Tech Lab. This is a lab we have in Redmond where we work on inclusive technologies like the Xbox controller that is built for people with different types of challenges that would not allow them to hold and leverage and use a regular Xbox controller. Well, we have just a huge amount of tech that we've created that can help people that need assistive devices. So lots of great content available here. I always send these slides out as a PDF afterwards, so you'll get the links, and we'll make sure that everybody has that. Let me look and see here. Will there be food and stuff if we attend in person? Since I'm not allowed to spend more than about 45 cents per person, I can give you a mint or a piece of gum. But there might be a not sponsored, not official, if you happen to swing by this particular place, we could have a drink together, happy hour after the Texas Teams community meeting. So can't buy you a drink, can't buy you food. I'll get fired for that. So, but don't want to unduly influence people to use Teams through big quantities of alcohol or anything else. All right. So moving on to the main event, organization-wide communication in a hybrid world. I made that up myself. Very, very fancy. And with this, first I'll pause real quick, which I don't do often enough. Are there any questions about anything I covered before or anything else before we launch into the topic of the day? All right.
Hey, Michael.
Yes.
If you don't mind, I was just going to plug a couple of upcoming events that DIR has on the DIR calendar. Communicating the business value of IT, we are putting on with Gartner next Tuesday. Nice. And then next Wednesday, there's a training session on Power BI with Microsoft, followed by a Power Automate session the following Wednesday, the 24th. These are all free opportunities, and this one's not on the calendar yet, but we have a webinar entitled Understanding Digital Accessibility Procurements that is going to be on August 30th, and is going to be presented by my colleague, Marie Cohen.
Yeah, I got to meet Marie at the TASK conference in person as well. She is awesome. I knew her predecessor, Jeff Klein. Jeff and I have been friends for 20 plus years. And so it was great to meet Marie. Mark, if you don't mind dropping the direct link to the DIR events calendar in the chat.
I absolutely will.
Yeah. And I want to go back. Jennifer Brown, thank you so much for please reconsider the use of the word tribe. I really do try to be sensitive, and that did not occur to me when I was thinking about, one tribe, that we're all using Teams and we're all in this group of Teams users together. But I didn't think of that. And so thank you for that. And I will noodle on a different way that I can express the unity that I feel with all of you that are using Teams, and pick a word that's not quite as laden with historical innuendo and references. So thanks. It is a daily deal to try to continue to be a person who is inclusive. So thanks for being helpful in that area. So I will now hand it over to Michaela for talking about what HHS has done.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you for having us today. We're super excited to be here. I'm gonna share my screen and sound. Can't forget sound. All righty. So my name is Michaela Mutcher, and I work for Texas Health and Human Services. I will be presenting on Company Communicator, and my colleague Erin Passons and a few of our other team members are on here as well, so they may jump in throughout. So basically, our team does marketing and communication for IT for our agency. So we communicate to IT staff and the entire agency about IT services. Now, we primarily communicate with staff through email, and our emails are known as IT alerts. And we know that only a small percentage of staff actually read the IT alerts or mass emails in general. And I'm sure there's a parallel there for most companies. And then of those that do read the emails, only a small percentage actually take action when requested. So when we heard about Company Communicator, we were really excited about the opportunity to reach staff in a new way. So if you aren't aware, essentially Company Communicator is an app in Teams that allows you to send mass Teams chat messages that look fancier than normal chat messages. So you can include an image, a short blurb or summary, and then a call to action button. And there's a lot of research indicating that chat messages are more effective or have higher read rates than email. So of course, we jumped headfirst into implementing this app for our users. And on the next slide, I am going to show you a video that we used to introduce Company Communicator to our staff to help give you an idea on how we used it. And then I'll explain more about what exactly you're seeing in the video once it's finished. And just to say up front, I know there are a few people on this call who work for HHS who are not in IT. So right now we only use this application for IT staff. So if you work for HHS and you are not in IT, you will not receive messages from Anita in Teams for the time being. So I just wanted to preface with that. So on to the video.
Are IT alerts cramming your inbox? Does it make you want to explode? Never fear, Anita's here. Who's Anita? Anita stands for a new IT alert, announcements and awareness.
Anita enjoys glamping with the dog Info, going to book clubs, complaining about traffic, and communicating important IT information to HHS employees.
Girl boss.
Using a unique chat notification on Teams, Anita rises above overworked staff, overscheduled directors, and those put-upon types who never check their email. By delivering quality IT information such as service announcements, events, and training directly to the Teams chat.
Wow.
These are loud.
How does Anita work?
I can't get it this loud yet.
When Anita has news you can use, you'll receive a chat notification on your desktop. Open it up to reveal important IT information. Then click on the button below the image to learn more. If you don't have a chance to catch up with Anita, no worries. Every Anita message is stored on the IT SharePoint site.
Yippee!
And, by the way, communicating with Anita in Teams is a one-way street. But if you need IT services, you can always ask for her help by clicking on the Anita icon in your taskbar. Questions? Reach out to the internal marketing team. This is Dig Dug the Money Man signing out from They Did What? Does Terry Know About This? Studios.
I love that video.
Thank
And if
you.
you don't know, Terry is Terry Ware. Terry is the Chief of Staff at Health and Human Services. and a force to be reckoned with. And you always ask before something rolls out, does Terry know about this?
I think there was maybe some people talking during the video. I don't know if that was an accident or if anyone had questions.
I think accident. I muted that person.
Okay.
So.
Okay, cool. So just a side note before I go into this slide, you might have noticed in the video that we have an icon on our taskbar for Anita. Now this is not the company communicator Anita. So we also have a help desk chatbot that we also branded as Anita. So to our external users, Anita is just our, overall friendly IT bot. She can send you important information in Teams, and if you need to request any IT services from the help desk, you can use her icon on your taskbar. So onto the slide. So we decided to brand Company Communicator as Anita because we've done a lot of research on the effectiveness of assigning a name and human characteristics to bots. And there are so many articles that mention that anthropomorphism improves end user experience. And that's because you feel like you're chatting with a friend when a bot has human characteristics and mannerisms, which ultimately can create an emotional connection or response between the user and the bot. And it ends up modeling a friendship relationship where you trust your friends to fulfill your needs for information or just fulfill your needs in general. So you kind of build that connection with a bot when it has human characteristics to fulfill your needs for information. Now, there is also research that a female bot creates a warmer, friendlier, and higher trust relationship than a male bot. And so based on this research, we developed Anita's human-like persona. And as the video explained, we chose the name Anita because it fits perfectly as an acronym for a new IT alert, or for us, a new way to share IT information. So on to some logistics. Okay, so we use Anita for important information that is relevant to the entire audience that receives her messages. So we don't want Anita to share things that are not relevant to the people who are receiving messages from her. You may have received an email that may or may not be relevant to you. And so we want to make sure that that is not the case with Anita. So she shares things like invitations to all staff events, upcoming trainings, and any information about high impact changes that affect the entire audience that she communicates with. And as I said before, she only communicates with our IT staff. For now, we hope that eventually she can communicate with the entire agency, but for right now, it is just IT staff. Now, we've also looked into the most effective day and time to send workplace messages. And according to our research, Tuesday and Wednesday between 1 to 3 p.m. is the best time to grab attention from end users. So that is typically when Anita will communicate. I'll present an example that we use that is outside of this time frame, but we want to try to stick to this as much or as closely as we can. And then as far as frequency, we are extremely thoughtful because we can't allow Anita to become clutter. We can't bombard people with Anita messages because then they'll stop paying attention like they have with emails. So we decided that Anita will communicate no more than once per week. And only about important information that people actually want to know, which should avoid any Anita fatigue, like we've all probably experienced email fatigue. So now I am going to share how we launched Anita. So we timed the launch, or our first message, with one of our monthly all IT staff webinars, which is known as the Italks. Now, our first message is displayed on the slide, and
Okay, have a good one.
You can see that it invites people to join the webinar. So we sent this about 45 minutes before the webinar began. And then once people joined the webinar, we had slides running that explained who Anita is and why she just contacted you. And we decided to go this route because we wanted to play off of the novelty and the new factor. We kind of assumed that people would be curious about why they received this message from someone they've never communicated with before, and therefore would join the webinar to learn more. And for these monthly webinars, we typically send a couple email notifications and reminders for people to register for the event. And we usually have around 400 staff attend. But in the webinar after we sent the Anita message, we had 600 staff attend, which is the highest attendance we've ever had in these webinars. So I would say that our strategy worked pretty well for this one. Now, after the first message, we wanted to really test Anita's effectiveness compared to emails. So we decided that our next message would be an introduction or more of an informational message about Anita in case someone missed the webinar from the first message and missed learning about who she is. So we wanted to share the video that I played for you all earlier. And so we sent an Anita message that linked to that video. Then we also sent an email to the same audience that linked to the same video using a different URL. So both versions of the video were hosted in SharePoint, but they were hosted in different locations. And then by using SharePoint Analytics, we compared the view rates of the URL sent through Anita compared to the URL sent through email, and the results were astounding. So the video URL sent through Anita had 3,000% more views than the one sent through email. So we can safely conclude that Anita messages are much more effective than email, which is what we expected, but it's really cool to have some real data on that now. And I will say Anita is pretty new for us still, so we haven't sent very many messages so far, but we can assume that our messages will continue to be much more effective through Anita versus email, and we are super excited to continue sending more and seeing the outcome. So with that, that is going to take us to our Q&A. And yeah, that's exactly right. There's a comment in the chat that says maybe it's because, or maybe it pops up on your screen versus having to open email. And yeah, I think because the chat notification pops up on your screen, it grabs your attention quicker and easier than having to sift through email. So I think that's definitely part of it.
Yeah, and I'd love to invite Jonathan to come on video and come off mute and speak to some of the experience that they had at Ernst & Young when he ran the team that rolled out Company Communicator, much like they have at HHS.
Yeah, happy to do so. So first off, Michaela, awesome presentation, man. Well, you
Thank
guys
you.
are rock stars over there. You guys are killing it, killing it. So before I jump in, was there any questions that you guys had for Michaela? Because I have one slide I just want to show, and then maybe a little bit of a demo to fill in a little cracks on how I look at Company Communicator, right? And kind of what I do with it, which is very similar to what Michaela's doing, but kind of in my area, which is HLS, Health Life Science, maybe a little bit different thoughts on how to kind of, deploy this out. So any questions first? Looks like we got a hand up.
Bradley Shook.
Yeah, thank you. So real quick question. What did you mean by when you said the Anita on the bar was different than the other one? I didn't quite understand what you meant by that.
Yeah. So we basically have two Anitas, but to our external users, it's just one friendly IT help bot. So the one on the taskbar is actually a help desk chat bot. So if someone wants to submit, a service request, they need a new computer, their screen, their mouse is broken, whatever. The Anita on the help desk on the taskbar goes to the help desk. So to our external users, kind of the way that we communicate it is, there's just one Anita. She can provide help desk support if you click her icon on your taskbar, but she can also send you important information through Teams. If that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, great question, Bradley. And we do have it's been quite a while since we've really had a session talking about bots. I'm going to mark that down as a second session. So one for accessibility and then another about bots. The bots have come so far, in fact, Jonathan made use of a bot early on with EY, and so I'll make a note on that.
All right, cool.
Any other questions? Feel free to throw a hand up, put it in the chat, or just jump off mute.
And if you don't have anything now, I'll put my email in the chat in case anything comes up later. If you want to email me, I'm happy to answer any questions later.
All right, Jonathan.
Thanks,
We
Michaela.
got Matt Hill has a question.
Hi, thank you. Great presentation, Michaela. My question is regarding the bot itself. What did you do as far as to make it user-friendly? You mentioned in the presentation more along the lines of making it help form bonds with the individuals that use it. What exactly went into that, and how does it do that?
Yeah, so you're talking about, see, now I'm confused with the two Anitas. You're talking about Company Communicator, Anita?
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So as far as the technical side of it, I'm sure Michael or Jonathan could probably talk more about it. But as far as, and then the images, we had to do a little bit of a workaround because the images that are pulled into the message have to be stored on a public site. And so so you cannot share them like or host them in SharePoint. You have to put them on a public facing site. So that was a little bit complex, and I'm happy if you want to email me if you want to know more about what we did, I can share that. And I'm sorry, did that answer your question, or was there something else I completely missed?
Kayla, can you share the slide again with the IT alert introducing the iTalk?
Yeah.
So one of the things we did when we talked about her name, we really had a session about what's her personality like, you know, and we really wanted to make it as friendly as possible. When you think of IT, you know, the dude in the corner, a bunch of wires, hasn't seen sunlight in a long time. So we wanted to have this, you know, very friendly, and you know, a little bit, she's got a little spice to her, but really just friendly and helpful, and a personality that others could relate to. And so this is a really good example of how we utilize that casual language and her personality to reach out to our users.
Yeah, and if I could jump in for one. So a couple things when I think about this is brand awareness, right? So first, a couple things to answer your question. What they've done here is awesome. This is more cartoon art. You don't have to have cartoon art. You can have more corporate art, right? So it depends on your business. It depends on who the message is intended for. And so I think that connection of this imagery to potentially your kind of wordings also, and this fits beautifully here, you know, that also needs to be taken in place. So when you make that brand awareness to your image, to your content, I think that connection connects with the end user and who that end user is.
Yeah, so one thing that we do in all of our message from Anita is we write them in first person, as you can see. So, you know, I just spoke to the CIO, you don't want to miss it, I'll see you there, so that it's like an actual chat message, you know, from a person.
Yeah, and I think one of the cool things about Communicator and the ability to not just brand it, like, in other words, the Company Communicator icon looks different than what they have, obviously. It looks different than EY Tech, which is what Jonathan used at Ernst & Young. And it can depend a lot on either the brand that you're creating, the persona that you're creating. It can depend on the culture of your organization. It's possible to have multiple versions of Company Communicator running so that you could have different looks and feels for different ones. I actually discourage against that. It's Company Communicator is not hard to keep running or anything, but it does have cost every month. It's a little bit less than $100 for the services. It runs inside of Teams, but it uses some Azure services, so it's about $100 a month to run Anita or Company Communicator. So, you know, if you had 10 of them, it'd be, you know, $1,000 a month. And so why spend $1,000 when you can just be mindful as you're creating the first one and make it be a more applicable brand icon and persona. Back to you, Jonathan. Did we lose Jonathan? We may have. He may have dropped out. He'll be. I'm sure.
I'm here. Sorry, guys. I had a little bit of technical difficulty there. Sorry about that.
No problem.
All right. So you mind if I jump in here, guys? And so let me go over. So first off, again, awesome presentation. Let me bring up my slide here. I'm going to talk about this a little bit. So as a quick intro, my name is Jonathan Danowitz. I work at Microsoft. I'm a senior customer success manager. And so, as Michael said, prior to coming to Microsoft, and I'll be here a year next month, Michael, can't believe it. Yeah, it flies by. I worked at Ernst & Young, where we deployed for well over 300,000+ people. So I look at communications very differently then, and I look at it very differently now. So let's take a break from just the concept of Company Communicator and talk about this functionality that I call digital assets. Can you guys see my screen here?
Yep.
And so when I think about Company Communicator, it is not a tool, and my mindset has shifted and changed so many times now that I've kind of deployed it, used it now for tons and tons of companies. It's not a tool to think of as a replacement of. So don't replace this tool with something like an email. It's an addition to type tool, right? And the reason for that is I look at assets as either push or pull. Okay, and these are just samples of stuff that you can think of when you talk about communications. But for me, Company Communicator is a push format, right? You push information to where the people are, right? So most people are using Teams. If you're sticky in Teams, you're going to get that communication right where you are, right? A few things that Michaela mentioned that I want to talk about, and Michael, when we talk about cost, it's so minor, we don't bring it up. There's some back-end Azure cost to it. It's every million messages you send, it's less than $75. And if you guys get crazy and want to send 2 million messages in a month, it's less than $78, right? So the cost of this is really minor. By the way, as I'm going and talking, please come off mute, please interrupt, don't wait till the end. I love having a kind of a two-way discussion on this as well too. And so what I want to do is further enhance some of the things that Michaela was talking about, and I actually can kind of demo and show you guys a little things here in our demo environment. But one of the things when we talk about Company Communicator, you mentioned this action rate. And I want to kind of define that and talk about action rate a little bit. So action rate means when something is sent and you want somebody to take action, you want them to then do something with what you've given them. When you send an email out that has links, that has an action for them, Microsoft is seeing only a 12 to 18% action rate. And so what does that mean? That means that email, and again, email is super important. I'm not here to tell you not to use email, but email is becoming an antiquated and old way to communicate as a single source, right? As opposed to what Michaela mentioned before in her call, when we action out in a card, in these adaptive cards, right? So you have this card, you have these buttons at the bottom, you send a card out, and you want your customers to then take action to an intranet site, a SharePoint site, whatever, you name it, right? A PDF file that's going to pop up. We're seeing upwards of a 25 to 28% action rate. And that's a big deal depending on the size of your corporation, depends on the size of your company, and also the messages. One other thing about the message, and we'll kind of just open one up here, is Company Communicator, kind of unlike email, which you can kind of send to everybody. You can do that in, I want to kind of get to the next stage here. You can do that in Company Communicator. You can send a card to everybody, but we now give you the ability to send that card to different groups, right? So you can get communication into the hands of the people that need it and want it. So have you ever sent a communication out through email and it's like, you look at it, you're like, I don't need it, I don't want it, it's just nonsense. So now we can get real specific by either creating these 365 groups or distribution or security groups, or we've now added this functionality to send to a valid CSV file. So imagine just sending stuff out to your HR group, your IT, you name it, right? The different business divisions, and getting the information to them that they want. We've done a bit of updates to the company communicator. If you haven't seen them, we can now schedule a card. So now we can say, hey, I don't need this card to go out now. We can go out later. And we can also mark it as important. So right here. So if you want to kind of get that little exclamation point when the message goes out, you can mark that as important. And the other piece that I want to make sure, and again, we'll kind of, if you want, we can get into the different cards, is we've added, and Michael, I don't know if you've seen this or if you've talked about this, but we now have an Insights tab, right, with the latest version. And so what is this? This Insights tabs now gives me insight. Go ahead.
Is this the new one that was
Latest
this week?
Latest one, just pushed, yep.
So Aaron and Michaela, this is the latest official version of Company Communicator that was released last week, I think. This had all those features that Cristiano's custom version had, but have now been rolled into the official version.
That's right. And so why is this important? It's important because now we can tell when a card is sent, was it read, right? Was it viewed? Was it successful? And what this does is it'll start to tell me, hey, the last 10 cards I sent out, I was able to get a popularity rate, a click rate, right, of X. And so maybe I send a card out on a Tuesday and I used cartoon art and it had some wordings and I didn't get a lot of clicks. But then I sent something out on a Thursday with more corporate art, with a bit more structure to the card, and I got a lot more views. Well, now you have a mindset to say, hey, I like that style. I like that card. It resonates better with our customers. So now we can change the way we send cards and we can have a better kind of communication with our customers. Okay. And so that's all now within a tab. This is a Power BI tab that gets added. And so it's really great. It gives us, the people who create the comms, and gives us, the people who send the information out, knowledge. And knowledge is key when it comes to communications. So let me pause. Any questions? And Michael, can you, if there are, can you just call them out?
Yes, I sure will. And I answered Bradley's. So it was, the question was about, if a user is offline when a card is sent, will they still get it the next time? And
yeah, so good question. It queues. And so what happens is when you send a card out, the people who get the card, if they're online and they have a license, right, a Teams license, they'll get it. If they are not online, as soon as they come online, that card will then show up.
And then there's another question that says only general analytics like SharePoint, or more details like who clicked?
Now, so I think a lot of that is sort of roadmap items. So this is more around a read receipt, in the sense of a card is sent. When somebody comes to their chat and they click on the card, you get to see that they click the card. So it's kind of a view of the card as opposed to somebody not doing anything with the card.
Excellent.
Yep.
Yeah. No, it doesn't get down to the UPN levels. The UPN is the unique identifier of that person, their email address. Basically, it does not have that level of granularity.
There's a lot more roadmap coming out. I don't have insights into exactly what's coming out, but there are some new enhancements coming with this reporting. I think this was the first play at it.
And Bradley, you have your hand up. Is that the question that we already addressed, or is that
no? One more question. So what about, like, if you're mobile? If I'm logged into Teams mobile, I'll see it there as well?
Yep, you'll get it on your mobile device. And these are formatted for mobile devices, and they are awesome, right? They look amazing on the mobile.
And what about, like, also say private time for our staff? Like, let's say I send something out at 6 o'clock in the evening.
Yep.
But they're not scheduled to be on, but they forgot to log out of Teams. It's on their phone. Is it still going to ping them?
It will, if they are logged in with a device, they will receive it. Now, if you have private time set, it'll queue until they come off of private time, and then it'll send to them.
Yeah, it's really important to realize that these are Teams chat messages that are subject to all policies that you have set for Teams chat messages. So if you have, like you said, private time, if you have expiration policies or retention policies, these will be cleaned up by retention policies. So this is it's a message. It seems very different, but it's really a chat message.
Yeah, that's good. Good point, Mike, for sure. And so the way, if you haven't seen this, and maybe some of you have, You have this ability to create this title. We have the ability to create, as you saw from these folks that showed before, this URL image. This is where you're going to have to make some decisions if you want more corporate or cartoon type art in there. You have this ability for a summary here. There are functions in here where we can bold, italicize, we can do lists, but you are limited to some of your editing pieces within the summary. There really isn't a hard limit that I've seen for the summary. Now, people may say, hey, that's cool. However, the suggestion is to keep it short, to keep it precise, get what you need. And then if you need more information, that's when you create these buttons for that action rate, to action them out to something else, like a SharePoint site, an intranet site, right? So it's, hey, here's what I want you to know. And if I'm a customer, I'm like, yeah, thanks, but I want more information, then you're going to action them out.
And the new version has the ability to add more than one button. Is that still correct?
It is right here. Yep.
Yep.
So I have one button here. If I want to add another button, I can do that.
So
It's actually
an opt out,
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's actually 4 buttons here. You can, again, if you have some customization and you know how to kind of customize some of the product on GitHub, you can create as many as you want, but we're going to give you 4 additional buttons, 4 buttons in total here. Okay. And so when you send the card, we have some basic kind of, oh, let's go down here to some of these. We have some, I'll just kind of pick one here. We have some basic stats. So it tells you your title, when the card was sent, when it was completed, how long it took, kind of results. Now, one thing I can tell you here is you may get some of these failures, right? And so somebody goes, well, what is that? Most likely the card, when you send a card, as we suggested before, if you are not online and you have a Teams license, it's queued, but the product will kind of deliver it as it's a failure until you log back on again. However, this number does not then go down. So just remember that if you see a bunch of failures, it doesn't mean the card failed to send. It just means that it's queued. And once that person comes back online, signs on the Teams, the cards will be sent, but we don't have the ability to then reduce this number down. Okay. And then this just tells you kind of a little bit more about the card itself. The card appears as a chat. Now, you guys mentioned before, the chat, the name, you can name it anything that you like. You can brand it anything that you want. Your corporate branding can be here as well too. And then you can receive that chat on this left-hand rail, and you can see all the different ones that were potentially sent to you. So kind of here's one that I created here as an introduction to Company Communicator, a little kind of corporate art, just a little bit of wordings, and then this is my action rate, and I don't remember, I think I actioned it out somewhere else. And so again, I look at these cards again, or even just the product itself is just an enhancement to communications, right? Do not think of this as a replacement tool. And so I'll sort of pause there and just see if I can help answer any additional questions.
Yeah, I want to just add on a little bit to that last point that you made, Jonathan. I was talking to a customer just literally right before we joined the community call, and they're looking at rolling it out, and they have a executive director video of the month, and so they're thinking, oh, we could send it out to announce the video of the month. They have an award-winning publication, a digital magazine that comes out once every 2 months, so they could send communication to get people to go to the page where the digital magazine is. And so it really is, we have organizations that are using it to drive a cultural initiative, to be able to do training on diversity and inclusion, to let people know about a health and wellness campaign. So it's really just, what can you come up with?
Yeah, I agree. That's it's a great point. So I want to just sort of reiterate some of the stuff that I heard also is what to use it for as well too. So it's a sort of an enhancement or an additional push to your influencer groups or your champion groups that are out there, right? So these champions and influencer groups can only reach a certain network and can reach sort of from that network and branch out so far. This tool can help you branch out even further, right? So, but don't also forget that this tool that I love, the best part about the tool, again, I talked about it before, is that it can send to specific groups about specific information. So you can just send HR related or IT related information to your IT groups, and then you don't have to burden anybody else with, I don't want to call it nonsense, but just information that just doesn't relate or make sense to them.
Yeah, like I'll give you an example. I work in public sector, as y'all know, state and local government, but I get stuff that somebody at corporate sends out to everybody and their dog, and it doesn't apply to me. And I get enough email. And I'm like, really? You couldn't, you couldn't target this at all, your email? You just send it to like Microsoft full-time employee all? And so it sort of cuts down on that sort of shenanigans. And the other thing is that you can have this tool available. One of my peers wrote basically a power app so that people can go in and fill out a request to send something through in like Anita or Company Communicator. And so it goes into a queue, it's reviewed, and then who you need to send it to, what distribution list or what O365 group, or now what CSV file. And so you can actually have this as a service that is available for from the communications department to be able to send out messages on behalf of others inside the organization. I would suggest you do not want to give very many people access to the authoring and send console. This is a very powerful tool. You don't want somebody messing up and sending something that you wouldn't want sent out.
Yeah, that's a great point. So I couldn't reiterate that more. The tool has the ability to send to all, so definitely be careful on the permissioning piece. One last thing, and this is where I don't know if I'll get in trouble, but I'll do it anyway because that's what I do. Here's what I wouldn't use the tool for, right? I think we've talked a lot, so it's important that we tell the greatness and everything that's positive about the tool. But here's where I would not use the tool and where I have not seen it. One is outages or full outages, and I'll explain why, or emergencies. I would use more of your Everbridge, where you got to get these million messages, these hundreds of thousand messages out in seconds, as opposed to when sending these corporate communications through Company Communicator, it could take a little bit of time to get out, right? So from the first person who receives the message to the last person could take a little bit of time. So what happens in, hour 1 or hour 2 and an outage or down issue is very different, and you need to communicate quickly about that. Why somebody would get a card now, and then if your neighbor doesn't get it at the same time, there's some crazy algorithm that's in the code that says, hey, Michael gets it at 9:02 and Jonathan gets it at 11:10, whatever. I don't know what that is. We can find that if we needed to, but just remember, be careful about sending it with massive outages. However, I say that, and one of my customers who I've deployed this to, their email went down, right? Email was, gone for days. And guess how they communicated with the company? Through, the corporate Company Communicator. But again, just be careful when you're thinking about your usages of the product. So to me, tips and tricks are a good one, Michael. I think you may have talked about that. Yeah, somebody just said
of that with EY.
Yep, we did that with EY. So we would send it out every couple weeks. Different tips and tricks, and it doesn't have to be Teams. It can be all of a sudden, maybe you want to start talking about some other tips and tricks about other product sets out there, right? Start promoting other things. What about HR? What about benefits that are coming, right? Hey, it's just to strengthen that email and information that goes out. Another thing that my customers use it for is holiday time. Get that holiday card out there, right? Use it for fun things. Again, it doesn't have to be real kitschy, and it doesn't have to be just about a certain type of holiday, but it can just be, hey, just as a reminder, as people are leaving for the holidays, How about set your out of office, right? Give those little sort of reminders on what to do when you're ready to leave. And I'll just sort of pause there and just say, in HLS, Health Life Science, I work a lot with payers and providers, and I have 11 different customers. We've deployed this out to 6 different customers, and they're all using it, but sort of differently, right? So I think you'll get your groove on how you would use it and how you want to use it, whether it's more corporate or if it's more, specialized to different groups. But I'm excited about the product, Michael. I really love it.
Oh, I love the new features. I'd love for you to talk a little bit, Jonathan, about some of your experience at EY, some of the things from those podcasts years ago that you did when you were using this as EY Tech, and you learned a lot of lessons over time about driving. Like, let's just say, we were doing a campaign. Hey, we're going to really try to get people using more of the asynchronous features of Office 365 to be able to work remotely, and triple peak schedules and all these kinds of variations in the way people work now that we're working remotely. And what I really remember about what you did is when you were teaching somebody about something, whether it's Teams or some other app, some corporate app that you have that's rolling out, it wasn't about the feature, but it was about what it did for you. And maybe you could speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think it was about when I spoke about it then, things have progressed and changed in the way that I deliver this, presentation, but it's about experiences, right? So if you remember, I talked a lot about experiences of products, and it's hard to communicate in email, and it's hard to communicate to these influencer and champions groups by just sending just this blast giant email, right? And so having these different experiences, getting some crisp, real easy to read kind of bulleted items for people. Remember, we've changed our mindset now. We went from, hey, I have to go to the movies, to now going to streaming video. And guess what we've turned into now? More this TikTok era, right? These quick hit. I can't even watch streaming videos anymore. I got to get this 20 to 30 second type stuff, right? And think about that's what a company communicator can do. It's less of this giant email that's out there, and now this little quick hit type of information. Hey, I've read it, I get it, and if not, now we can start that action to kind of push them into something deeper if they need it.
Yeah, I love that evolution. I hadn't thought about that, but that's a super good point.
Yeah. Questions? Did I put you to sleep? I've done that before too. So.
Let's see. So, David Tarver, communicator is more social media versus sending alerts or advertisements.
It depends on your business as well too. I don't know if that's it's an interesting statement. Again, I personally, and I'd like to hear from this group or others that have deployed it. When I talk to my customers, I really shy them away from outages, just complete outages. Again, it's only because of, I think it sends, and Michael, correct me if I'm wrong if you know this, but it's about 500 or 600 every minute kind of goes out when you send these.
Yeah. So we have one of our customers, the largest customer using it is the National Health Service in the United Kingdom. They send to millions of, I think it's literally like 1 million employees. And it is, if any of you are old enough to remember, like IBM's MQ series, message queuing, it is the service that runs in Azure is a queuing service. And so it queues up the message to be sent and it sends them out. And you're right, it's somewhere, I mean, I think what you used to say at EY for 300,000 people worldwide, it was a few hours. Like
it was about 5 hours or something like that. Yeah.
300,000 messages worldwide. So yeah. I know none of the organizations here in Texas have that many employees. So it would be potentially less time. But again, this is not a building. This is, like you said, I did misread it, David. He said advisements versus sending alerts or advisements. Yes.
Advisements. Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a good point for sure. I think advisements are good. Tips and tricks are great. HR announcements, enhancing, strengthening. Hey, what do they call that when you're getting your insurance? Why am I drawing a blank here?
Open enrollment.
Yeah, open enrollment. Thank you. I don't know why I remember that. But it's just strengthening those types of communications. Again, not in place of, but enhancement. Now, remember, if you deploy this, here's the great thing about the product. First off, it takes about 2 hours to deploy, right? Maybe 2.5 hours. You need somebody that has a bit of Azure access in the back end. Once you deploy it and it's sitting there, it's not eating up any Azure. You're not paying for it. You're not doing anything, right? So unless you send the cards out, but again, sending the cards out, I like Michael's numbers better. It's going to be less than $100 every month, no matter how many cards. You're not going to hit the 2 million, I don't think.
Yeah, and the thing that we, Jonathan, again, I ran this global campaign around Company Communicator, so we did a lot of investigation on this. The Azure services that run, and they do, and I'll just, contrary to what you said, Jonathan, if you did not send a single card, and you left the Azure services running, which you do, this isn't like a VM that you turn on and off, it's about $94 a month. If you send 300,000 messages through it, it adds about $17. And so the variable cost is very low. And the actual cost to have it sitting there is also less than $100 a month. I mean, I know that's not chump change, but when we think of a communication tool that can really drive the needle, most communication groups say like, that's it. Oh, we spend that much on, whatever tool. It's not cost prohibitive. I will say a couple of things specific to Texas. We now have, I think, 4 customers that are running it here in Texas, and for a variety of different uses. And so you do need to, this is a request that gets put in through the data center services, DCS. If you are interested in that, you can reach out to me, and we can hold your hand through the whole process, and working with the DIR on getting the services stood up. So it's a little harder than if you were just in the commercial sector and you just want to do it because of the DCS program and what's required for setting up services. But it just takes a couple extra weeks. That's about it. And the DIR is used to these requests, and so is the I won't get into all the acronyms for the data center services and the Azure services and all that, but yeah.
Michael, I want to jump in on the question that was in the chat about the social media versus sending alerts and advisements. So in the examples that we presented, they were more kind of informational about here's Anita or join this webinar. But some of the other things that we would use Anita for would be, I mentioned the term high impact changes. So that is a change that, affects the entire audience, that, as I said, affects everyone. So one example would be, recently Internet Explorer retired a couple months ago. And so switching to Microsoft Edge instead of Internet Explorer. So that is something that we consider a high impact change that affects everyone. And so that is a good contender for something that we would send through Company Communicator. Another one would be, we launched a new password reset tool several months ago. And so, things like that, we typically only communicate through email or we have news articles in various places, but those are pretty important things. So we would use Company Communicator or Anita as just kind of a second tool to communicate those things to make sure that we're getting the word out as much as possible.
Yeah. Awesome. And 2 years ago, Aaron and I worked on the project when HHS was moving off of Skype into Teams, and we were doing a cutover it was December 11th was our cutover. And Aaron put together a whole media campaign, communications campaign, 6 different messages that went out just over and over and over again over a span of a few months, letting people know that Skype was going away. We did not have Company Communicator back then. And when Skype went away, they had a lot of calls that were like, what happened to Skype? Where'd it go? Oh my God, why didn't you tell me this was going to happen? It's like, search for Skype in your inbox. You will find 6 messages over the last, 8 weeks. So people just don't, we're all busy. People don't read email. I can't stand my email inbox. And so, again, if we'd had Anita, then they would have gotten the alert.
All right. Anything else? And by the way, I love those examples that Anita does. You guys are killing it over there. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's super fun.
Thank you.
So, that's really what we wanted to do today. We wanted to let you know about this. What I'm thinking about putting together is if we get enough organizations that are interested, we would do kind of like a webinar and just walk everybody through, like your IT people, how we would set this up, and really just teach people this is the process you go through. But if you just wanted to reach out to me, we have documentation and directions and a whole process to help you through it. If this is interesting to you, or if you want to tell your communications person about this new cool tool they could use to improve their ability to communicate to the organization, I will send out to everyone that's here, or everybody that's on my list. I'll send out a summary, and I'll send the deck, and then I'll also send a link to today's video. So if they wanted to go and watch the video to hear what all their, what this thing is that they haven't heard of before, then send them a link to the video.
Awesome.
So. Yeah, but don't tell them to send me an email. If they want to reach out to me on Teams. Okay. Well, I think give people one more minute to ask questions. Otherwise, I just really want to thank HHS, Aaron, Michaela. Thank you so much for one, just being such great partners and such a great customer, and the fun that we get to have working together. Like Jonathan said, you guys are killing it. It's just so much fun to see what y'all are doing. Wanted to say thanks to Jonathan. Buddy, it's great to see you. I so appreciate you coming and being a guest on our show, and I cannot believe it's been a year already.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if there's any more questions, reach out to Michael, or, I'm happy to help out as well, too. So
yeah.
Good luck, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Mark, thanks as always for supporting us, and everybody have a fantastic evening. Y'all enjoy your weekend.
See you guys.
I'm going to stop the recording.